We all need to laugh more. And as we age, we need to laugh a whole lot more. And today I am excited to be joined by my soap opera daytime sister, trailblazer, amazing human being, Mariann Aalda. Mariann, welcome to the New Mid.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. I'm really happy to be here. Although it's funny because I guess it would be the new mid. I'm 73. Does that qualify me as mid? I guess if you extend the parameters. I kind of feel like I've matriculated through midlife and I am now embracing my elderhood.
I love that. Well, you know what? It's funny because if you look at Jamie Lee Curtis, she is just rocking it at 70. People aren't stopping anymore. So midlife has really sort of shifted. And that's why I started the new mid. And we'll get into that. But first, I want to talk to you because, as I mentioned, we are daytime sisters. And yeah,
Amen.
we both come from the wonderful world of daytime. You have always been a trailblazer in your life. I mean, you were the first African American daytime soap opera heroine playing
Not
the
the first,
fan.
one of the
One of
first.
the first.
One
I'm
of the
sorry.
first.
Thank you for correcting me. One of the first, and the fan favorite criminal defense attorney, DiDi Bannister on The Edge of Night. I mean, you really sort of helped pave the way for Olivia Pope and a lot of other actresses. So, how did your journey begin?
Well, when I was in college, I became a soap opera fan. And two of my favorite soaps were on ABC, uh, All My Children and One Life to Live. And on All My Children, John Donnell and Lisa Wilkerson played Frank and Nancy Grant. And then on on One Life to Live, there was Ellen Holly and Al Freeman Jr., and they played Ed and Carla. And that was an opportunity for me to see Black people on television who were middle class and professional people. And I thought, ooh, I think I could be on a soap opera. Now I'm going to back up a little bit. When I was a little girl, the desire to be on television came when I was watching the Mickey Mouse Club. My big goal was to be a Mouseketeer. I wanted to be on the Mickey Mouse Club so badly. And what made me a believer was Annette Funicello. Because when you're a little kid, you don't know race or ethnicity, you just see color. And Annette Funicello had olive skin and she had dark curly hair. And I thought, oh, there's somebody who looks like me. I can do that. And my parents were like, yeah, whatever. But they also encouraged me by, I was able to take dance classes and drama lessons. And I was a very outgoing, kind of wild and crazy kid. So they wanted to, maybe this will calm her down. It didn't work. It only, if anything, it only exacerbated that for me. But, and whenever I do motivational speaking and I talk to, especially high school students, I say the key to achieving anything in life is to dream big, a really big dream. And my big dream was to be on the Mickey Mouse Club. Mickey Mouse Club used to come on right after The Edge of Night. And so when I moved to New York, and that's another story about how I ended up on ABC on Edge of Night. But I say, I didn't get my big dream. I aimed for the stars, but I got to the moon. And that was pretty darn good because they were back to back in the time schedule. So I didn't quite make it to the Mickey Mouse Club, but Edge of Night was pretty darn good. I was happy with that I reached that destination.
It's interesting because you do talk about your parents, and you have mentioned before how your dad told you, don't let other people's no's hamper your yes.
Yeah, he said, specifically he said, My parents both grew up in the Jim Crow South. My dad grew up in Tennessee, and my mom grew up in Mississippi. And they moved to Chicago to have a better life in the 30s, 40s. And so my dad was really old school. His father was a minister. He said, Mariann, because you're a little colored girl, you're going to have to work 10 times as hard as those other folks, but don't let anybody else's no stop your yes. And he just said it as kind of a matter of fact, without any bitterness or anger. And that's the way I took it. So I thought, oh, okay, I can do that. Work hard. I can do that. Now, interestingly enough, which I think your listeners should take note of this. Some of the things that motivate us and inspire us when we're younger don't necessarily serve us as well as we get older, because hard work has always been easy for me. And as you get older, I thought, work 10 times as hard. Okay, we've got to get that out of my belief system. And instead of working harder, work smarter, and then trust and allow. Especially at, you kind of, because sometimes we can get on that hamster wheel and we just run. And then all of a sudden we wake up and we go, well, wait a second, I've been running, but I haven't moved. I'm still going around and around and around. So I stopped, took a breath, did a little reassessment. And I, as a matter of fact, I think when I was younger, I don't think I was ever really fully present for any of my success, because I was always thinking about the next thing. And so now at 73, I am fully present. I don't want to think too far ahead because, well, you know where that's going to be. So I am fully present, and I'm enjoying every moment. I put just as much energy and enthusiasm into my career, but it's funny, I have less time on the planet than I've spent on the planet so far. But the urgency isn't as great to accomplish. I mean, if I look back at what I've accomplished, I've done pretty good. But a lot of that was to please other people, to show my parents, see what I could do to be a role model for other Black people, young Black girls, to say, see, hang in there and you can do it. And now I'm doing it for me. It's Simone Biles, watching her at the Olympics. She realized that she was performing for so many other people. It was affecting her. And then the last part of the Olympics, of this last Olympics, she didn't get a lot of gold medals, but she said she had a good time because she was doing it for the pure joy. And right now, at this time in my life, I am doing it for the pure joy. I wish I had learned it 50 years ago. I wish I had learned that in my 20s, but it's never too late. Better now than never.
It's wonderful to say that. And I completely agree with you. And I think we are being a lot more mindful, and people are talking about that more, which is so important. But we also go through reinvention phases in our life. And you had mentioned, it's funny because we have a similar, as I mentioned, we were both in the daytime world. And when I was in that world, we coveted 18 to 49, that demo, like everything was about 18 to 49. The advertisers loved them. So when I turned 49, I got really depressed because I knew, I was like, oh my God, I'm aging out of the demo. Like I didn't want a 50th birthday party, like the whole thing. But then that's when I created the new mid, because I was like, hey, we're just going to start something new. We're still climbing. We have a lot to do. And when the phone stopped ringing with, agents or casting directors calling you, you reinvented yourself and got back into your roots of comedy, correct?
Correct. Well, I actually started out in New York City. My very first paying gig in New York was for Off-Center Theater, and they had a contract with the Parks Department for the city of New York, and to do a street theater throughout the summer. And so for the grand sum of $75 a week, and all you could beg in the street because we would pass the hat. And they had this old moving van, and they cut out the side so the side would come down, and we would put bricks, you know, cinder blocks underneath to hold it up. And we would do street theater off the side of a truck. And we would do it at South Street Seaport, Wall Street, the Plaza, all the places where people would congregate during lunchtime. And we did a soap opera, Hope for Life, and it was the life and times of Hope Valencia. And I was one of her friends, and my name was Libby Ration. I mean, it was the 70s. So we were like very into our feminist, into our feminism at that time. And so it was, and we did that. I did that all summer. And I remember at the end of the summer, I mean, I had taken a leave of absence from my job. Interestingly enough, the job that I had was as a unit publicist for ABC Daytime. And I thought, you know, and I had actually left the job. I was on maternity leave. So I took my son was like 3 months old at the time, and the company was always used to, always say my kid got me the job, because they said, oh, look at the little baby. And I think they just hired me so they could have my kid around. But I decided that was a sign. The very first audition I had as an actor, it was a paying gig. And I thought, okay, I can do this. I can do this. And when my husband and I got married, he married a working woman. I was working in publicity and as an account executive in public relations and publicity. And I thought, I am going to honor our contract. He married a working woman. And I thought, if I'm going to be an actress, I'm not going to be a starving artist. I'm going to make a living at it. And I think that is where a lot of, you talk about mindset. Sometimes people think you have to either be a creative or corporate, pick one. It doesn't have to be either or, it could be yes and. Because all of the skills that I learned as a publicist about marketing, because if I want to work, I'm a product. I need to know how to market myself. I need to know who my audience is, how to appeal to them. And I believe it's especially serving me well now, because an older female audience, that's my deliverables. That's my fan base. And if I can deliver that audience, especially, and because I love comedy, if I want to be on an ensemble show, they would say, well, we need one from column A, one from column B, we need an older woman. Hello, here I am. And because of that, I can deliver that demographic. That could, as you very well know, working at a network, that could make the difference between a show getting picked up or getting canceled.
Right. But I also love how you took aging and you just made it more enjoyable. You decided,
It
what,
better be.
we're gonna age, so we might as well laugh about it. And your company name is I'm gonna sit my, down. Production.
Okay. Mule sounds a mule, another name for mule, or a jack, fill in the blank. Yeah. Well, and the reason I came up with the name for my company is because I was living in New York. I had moved back to New York, and because I was doing a solo show with Iona Morris. We had a show called Moist, which is an acronym for the Multiple Orgasm Initiative for Sexual Transformation. And we had done it at the National Black Theater Festival in Winston-Salem. The Negro Ensemble Company wanted to pick it up and bring it to New York. So I moved to New York, and then they ran out of money, so they couldn't do it. Iona said, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. She began to focus on her directing. And I thought, well, I'm going to keep on going. So I stayed in New York. I signed a lease on a studio apartment and a brownstone on the second floor. before I even moved in, I broke my foot in a pothole and I couldn't get up and down the stairs. I spent 2 months with my foot in a hard cast, 6 months in a boot. I had to move to stay with my son in North Carolina. My grandchildren said, "Oh, Nana, we will be your servants." And they would just like roll me around and stuff like that. When I finally went back, I could get up and down the stairs, but not too often. And I thought, well, I'm gonna sit my blank down and be funny. I don't have to do stand up because I can't. I'm gonna sit down. And that's when I started doing like little vlogs or like little webisodes of my performance art character, adult sex ed evangelist and mojo motivator, Dr. Ginger. And so I would just talk to the camera and give little naughty advice, little risque advice. And then my sister was going through a divorce. I moved back to Chicago to be with her. And I went to the Screen Actors Guild office in Chicago, and I met Troy Pryor, who has an incubator for creatives called Creative Cipher. Kathy Byrne, who is the head of Chicago office, said, "You two ought to get together. You need to produce her web series." And he did. And so I have a 25 episode web series called Talk to Me, Ginger, I got 5 stand-up comics, or Troy got them because he knew them all. 5 stand-up millennial comics. They each picked a partner and we improvised the whole thing. I said, figure out whatever it is your deal is, and then we will talk about it. And so there is and each of the 5 couples has a 5-episode story arc. So that's how we got the 25 episodes. And the story arcs are Punani and the Preacher. Okay, that's about a minister whose wife wants to have more sex than he does. And then there is a pimp and his only one employee who happens to be his wife, and he thinks she's enjoying her job too much. And there's just crazy characters like that.
Oh my goodness.
And it's I say make millennials your friends because they were so much fun to work with. And aging is an intergenerational, it's everybody should be involved in it. We need to, make allies of other generations. You're what, Gen X?
Yeah, I'm Gen X. I'm 53. So yeah, that's why I love it. And it's funny, we kind of get passed over. The boomers and the millennials, they either are fighting or they're getting along, and we just kind of are Gen X sort of hanging out.
well, I get along well with, as a matter of fact, I have a partner in a clubhouse room, and every Tuesday night, we hold an intergenerational conversation. Her name is Kara Masteller. She's a 27-year-old gerontologist. Now she's kind of on the cusp between the millennials and Gen Z. So she's a zillennial. And so the boomer and the zillennial have an intergenerational conversation and dialogue. As a matter of fact, today is Tuesday. Tonight, we're going to be discussing the movie Queen Bees.
Oh, right. Well, this is actually going to air on Monday, so the Clubhouse will have already happened.
But there'll be a replay.
You can do replays now. And you know what? It's interesting because you have been a trailblazer all your life, and now you are trailblazing ageism. You've done a TED talk on it, TEDx talk on it, and you talk a lot about age shamelessly.
Right. I actually started getting involved with this as actually I consider it my mission, my ministry. When the casting director stopped calling me in my early 50s, because a lot of the roles that I played were, the pretty girl, the wife, the girlfriend. Those are the kind of roles I play. And because I was considered more of a leading lady than a character actress, my agent said, well, maybe if you gain 50 pounds, you could do more character work. Because when you're the pretty girl, you age out of that character. Oh, well, what do we do with her? She's neither she's not pretty anymore because she's not young anymore. She's not really what do we do with her? So we make her a judge. You know, that's what it is. She becomes a
Oh
judge on
gosh.
all the procedurals. And I thought, I did not become an actor to be judge number 9 on some procedural show. I am a storyteller. That's why I became an actor, to tell stories that enlighten or inform or just lift your spirits. And if I couldn't be part of the story, then I thought that it doesn't feed my spirit, it doesn't feed my soul. So actors tend to have a natural curiosity about human behavior and motivation. So I decided to become a hypnotherapist, and I trained as a hypnotherapist. Now, during the course of my lifetime, I've been in therapy. You know, usually for short term, if I've got a problem, I can't figure it out, I'll go see somebody to talk about it. And I had a lot of friends who had been in therapy for, sometimes I thought, you know, a little too long. You should have figured this out already. And what I love about hypnotherapy is that, you know, sometimes talk therapy, you can talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and you really embed the problem more securely rather than getting it out, more than excavate. Hypnotherapy excavates the problem. It kind of goes to the wiring and snips it up and changes things. So I thought, well, that's the kind of therapy I want to do. I want to see people's lives change quickly. And I spent a year in training at the Hypnosis Motivation Institute in Tarzana, California. And that's where Florence Henderson's late husband, had started the school. And Florence Henderson was a big proponent of hypnosis. I think she started taking, went there initially because of migraine headaches. But anyway, most of my clients were women in their late 40s, early 50s, and they were all depressed. And these were wealthy women, well-to-do, professional. And I thought, why are you so sad? And then I realized, talking to them, that we as a culture have been hypnotized into believing that women lose value as we get older. And so my job became to de-hypnotize them. Funny thing about actors, we tend to be highly suggestible. So when I would give the positive suggestions to my clients, it would sink into my subconscious mind to the point that I had to reclaim. I couldn't tell these women to go out and do and be all that you can be when I wasn't doing it myself. So I thought, okay, well, what's my next move? And it was to do a solo show. And my very first solo show I did at the HMI auditorium. And it was, snap out of it. You've only been hypnotized into believing you're over the hill. And what really kept me going and kept me doing this is that the audience feedback, the women were telling me what they needed. And I realized that I was doing a service for them, because they weren't seeing themselves portrayed in film and television the way I was portraying them. And so I just kept on going, and I kept on doing the show. I did in New Orleans, I did in New York, I did in Chicago, I did in LA. And I just thought, eventually Hollywood will come around. And when they do, they're going to need me. Because something that Harrison Ford said in an article that I read 30, 40 years ago in the LA Times, he said, I have no illusions about the role I serve in this industry. I am simply a cog that helps to turn the wheel of commerce. And Hollywood has not created enough cogs, because they've either ignored them and people have left the business. And I'm still here.
Well, you know what? You're absolutely right. I mean, like I was saying earlier, I was all about 18 to 49 when I was a network executive. So turning 49, I was so sad. But if you look at Netflix right now and look at their Christmas movies, I mean, you see Brooke Shields has her own Christmas movie. It is changing. You know, we, especially boomers, have a lot of money to spend. And it does kind of feel that they are listening a little bit more. But you, my friend, are still kind of like making sure that we are represented and talking about it the right way and not stereotypically, you know, the old people's TV show or the old people's
Oh,
movie, right?
you're right. Oh, absolutely. Well, the thing about it is that a lot of the roles that I get to audition for, I say the character is one of three C's. She's a curmudgeon, she's crippled, or she's crazy. She's one of those three. And, you know, I think actors are innately themselves in every character that they do. So when I go into an audition with my energy, even if I put a gray wig on, they're gonna like, nah, that's not gonna work. So I thought, you know what? And I don't do what we call indicating. I don't go in there and try to be old. It's like early in my career, because I am fair complected, I would get, oh, she's not black enough. Well, I'm, what do you want me to do to be blacker? For me to try to do anything would be redundant. I'm black, hello. I'm 73 years old. I don't try to deny that, but I go like, hey, this is what 73 is like in 2022. And eventually, well, you have to look at who's in the decision-making room right now. It's a lot of, you know, older men, and they tend to create from the fantasies that they have in their minds. And obviously the imaginations must be very limited, because they're not, you know, what is that, the First Wives Club? When their wives get old, they just get another one. So they're not thinking about us older women.
Well, it's interesting because we are sort of letting them know. Look at J-Lo, look at Jennifer Aniston, look at Jennifer Garner. Like, we are letting them know this is what it is. Drew Barrymore has her own talk show.
You know what was missing from all of those women that you just named?
What?
There are no women of color. That's where there's a big,
Okay,
big gap.
Tamara Hall, who at
Okay.
48 had her first baby, by the way. I was like, oh, Tamara.
Okay, she's a talk show host. Okay, she's a talk show host. She doesn't act. Oprah acts, but she's primarily known for being a talk show host.
Okay, I have to tell you, Gayle King is my hero. When I did this podcast, I thought of Gayle King, and I hope she is on my bucket list to meet. Fingers crossed. I really want to meet Gayle King, because I thought to myself, what am I doing? I'm 50 and a half. Am I really going to start my own podcast? Am I really going to get my friend Fred to give me a half an hour on the radio, the local radio station, to air a talk show on on midlife women? And I did, but I have to tell you, Gayle King being on CBS this morning, I'm a huge devout follower. She inspired me to do it. I was like, if she can do this at 60, I can do this at 50.
And she's wildly successful.
She's
wildly
amazing.
successful.
Oh,
she's had her biggest career after 60. And that's the thing. But you know what happens is that sometimes people who are still in the suites where they make the decisions, they look at someone like Gayle King as an anomaly. And at what point, but what's starting to happen is that we're starting to trend now. We've gone from anomalies to trends. We are now trending.
Yes.
And
Yes. And we are going to keep doing that, because Mariann, you are a trailblazer and you have started this movement for us. And women like me are right there with you. And is it the Zenilin?
Zillennials, the zillennials.
Millennial, they're right behind us. I think us women, intergenerational, supporting each other and letting, Hollywood, the book publishing agency, TEDx, look at you in 2019 getting on the 10X stage. That was fantastic. By the way, if you haven't seen Mariann's TEDx, you need to watch it.
Yes, it's ageism is a bully. Stand up to it.
Exactly.
Because it is all of the isms, the ageism, racism, sexism. I say in my TED talk, all of the isms, the ISM stands for I subscribe mentally, but you can cancel your subscriptions.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. Well, Mariann, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for being on the new mid.
Thank you
And
for asking me.
I have one final question. If someone is listening to us and they've been feeling a little bit older or a little bit like their time has passed, but now we've gotten them fired up and realized you can start at any age at 50, 40, 60, 73. What suggestion would you give to them to get going?
Okay, I'm going to take a little wisdom from my TED talk. The thing that happens to women, that the complaint that I hear the most is that they feel invisible. If you're feeling invisible, stop looking for people to look at you. You look within inside yourself and find out what it is that you're passionate about. What is it that you want to do? Really live your life for yourself. As I say, do something that lights your fire. Because when you're on fire, you're not invisible.
That's amazing. Well, with that, we have to end because that was brilliant. Again, Mariann, thank you so much for coming on the new mid.
Thank you, Michelle, for asking me. It was my pleasure. And we're just going to keep on going, girl.